It started on an ordinary day, but what unfolded would leave an entire community talking. A white police officer, confident in his authority, pulled over a car for a routine traffic stop. Inside the vehicle sat a well-dressed black lawyer, calm and polite, but the situation quickly turned tense. The officer's tone was sharp, his words dismissive, and his behavior raised questions the lawyer couldn't ignore. What began as an uncomfortable encounter soon spiraled into something much bigger. Word spread, and whispers of the incident reached the media, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. Investigators stepped in, peeling back layers of misconduct that no one could have anticipated. As the story unraveled, it revealed a deeper, more troubling truth within the department, one that would lead to mass layoffs and a reckoning no one saw coming. How did one moment trigger such a massive fallout? Stay tuned to find out. The lawyer, a well-respected figure in the community, couldn't shake off the encounter. It wasn't just about the officer's rudeness. It was about the unspoken layers of prejudice that seemed woven into the moment. He decided to file a formal complaint, not out of anger, but to seek accountability and fairness. What he didn't know was that his decision would set off a chain reaction far beyond anything he had imagined. As investigators began digging into the officer's conduct, they uncovered a troubling history. Complaints had been swept under the rug, patterns of misconduct ignored, and a culture of silence had taken root within the department. Each new discovery added weight to the growing case, and the tension in the community began to rise. People started asking questions. How deep did this go? Who else was involved? And most importantly, how would justice be served? The answers were still out there, waiting to be revealed. As the investigation gained momentum, more voices began to surface. Former officers, community members, and even victims of past incidents came forward with their own stories. Some recounted similar encounters with the same officer, while others pointed fingers at a system that seemed designed to protect its own at any cost. The lawyer found himself at the center of a growing movement, his actions inspiring others to demand transparency and change. Meanwhile, within the department, tension simmered. Officers who had long followed orders without question were beginning to feel the weight of public scrutiny. Whispers of internal disputes and broken alliances began to leak, hinting at a divide between those determined to preserve the status quo and others quietly hoping for reform. The officer at the heart of it all remained silent, but his record spoke volumes. Each revelation added pressure, and the department's leadership faced an impossible decision: protect their own or admit to a broken system. The stakes were climbing, and the truth was becoming harder to contain. The investigation reached a boiling point as more evidence began to emerge, painting a grim picture of systemic issues within the department. A hidden report from years ago resurfaced, revealing that warnings about certain officers, including the one involved in the incident, had been ignored. Public outrage grew louder, with protests and town hall meetings filling the city with an undeniable demand for accountability. Behind closed doors, department leaders scrambled to contain the fallout. Whistleblowers hinted at files being destroyed and pressure being put on investigators to halt their work. Meanwhile, the lawyer who had sparked it all found himself in an unexpected position, both a hero to some and a target for others. Anonymous threats arrived, warning him to back off, but he refused to be silenced. The tension reached its peak when a bombshell report leaked to the press, revealing the extent of the department's cover-ups. It was a moment of truth. Leaders could no longer deny what had been exposed, and the community braced itself for the fallout. The city was on edge, waiting for the decisions that would determine not just the future of the department, but the trust between the people and those meant to protect them. Just when the community thought the situation couldn't get more intense, another shocking revelation came to light. A confidential memo from years prior surfaced, showing that not only had senior officials been aware of the misconduct, but some had actively worked to shield the implicated officers. This wasn't just about one officer's behavior anymore. It was about an entire chain of leadership complicit in covering up the truth. The leak sent shockwaves through the city, and trust in the department crumbled further. Citizens began questioning how many other incidents had been buried and how far up the corruption went. The lawyer, now a reluctant symbol of the fight for justice, uncovered yet another layer of the story. He discovered that the officer involved in his encounter had ties to a group of colleagues who seemed untouchable, their actions consistently excused by higher-ups. As protests swelled, a divide within the department itself grew more apparent. Some officers broke their silence, exposing a culture that demanded loyalty over honesty. The city's leadership, under mounting pressure, promised sweeping reforms, but the promises felt empty to a public that had heard them all before. The tension was unbearable, and everyone was waiting to see what the breaking point would be. The tipping point came during a public hearing where the department's leadership was forced to address the allegations. With cameras rolling in the community watching closely, whistleblowers stepped forward to share their stories. One former officer delivered a damning testimony, revealing a secret network within the department that prioritized loyalty and protection over justice. It was a shocking moment that left the room in stunned silence. The officer at the center of it all was finally called to account, but instead of defending his actions, he broke down and confessed. He admitted to years of unchecked misconduct, blaming the system that enabled him. His confession implicated several high-ranking officials, sparking an immediate wave of resignations. The city announced mass layoffs within the department, promising a full overhaul of its policies and leadership. But just when it seemed the story was over, an unexpected twist emerged. A deeper investigation revealed that the leak of the confidential memo, the document that had exposed the department's corruption, had come from within. It was the lawyer himself who had uncovered the memo through his legal connections and quietly ensured it reached the press. He had been fighting for justice not just in public, but behind the scenes, taking risks to bring the truth to light. The city was left shaken but hopeful, knowing that change was finally on the horizon. Yet the question lingered. Could real reform take root, or would history repeat itself? The city slowly began to heal as the reforms took shape. The police department, now under new leadership, started implementing policies aimed at transparency, accountability, and better community relations. The mass layoffs had cleared out much of the old guard, but rebuilding trust was a long and difficult journey. Citizens, once divided, began to see the change they had demanded, though they knew it would take time for true transformation to take hold. The lawyer, who had never sought fame, found himself hailed as a hero. He continued his work, advocating for systemic change, determined to ensure that what happened to him never happened again. Yet as the dust settled, the question remained. Could one victory lead to lasting change, or would it take more than a single fight to dismantle years of corruption? In the end, the story was a reminder that even the smallest actions, when fueled by justice, can spark a wave of transformation. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, it felt like the community was ready to win.